Andel thinks of herself as ordinary, yet nothing about this scene is. In front of her, the young master stands shirtless in a pool of bubbling red lava, as if it were warm water. He notices her and greets her calmly. Andel responds with a stiff bow, her thoughts racing as she wonders if he summoned her. This man is no noble. He is the most powerful magician on the continent, the feared Grim Reaper. Without turning around, he tells her to come closer. Nervous, Andel asks if he still needs her services. Instead of answering directly, he gestures to the molten pool and tells her to step in and bathe with him. Her eyes widen in shock. Jumping into lava would mean instant death. He casually suggests they can wash each other's backs, acting nothing like the monster from the rumors. When she doesn't move, his tone sharpens. A flame forms in his palm, powerful enough to level a building. He asks if she would prefer his help. Terror grips her. She knows he uses threats as easily as breathing, and she also knows she has no real choice. Staying means angering him. Refusing means death. Clutching her bag, Andel steels herself. If death is inevitable, she might as well obey. She sprints forward and leaps toward the lava. The young master catches her midair with ease, looking down at her with a faint smirk and remarking on how obedient she has become. This twisted relationship began only days ago. Back then, Andel was a normal girl from the modern world who suddenly transmigrated. Her memory shifts to a classroom where an unfamiliar voice announces the Orlan's Academy recruitment test. This single exam will decide their futures. Andel blinks in confusion, barely processing the words. She's told that poor results mean remaining in the monastery as an orphan. Looking around at the 10 students, she realizes that just moments ago, she had been playing video games in her dorm. Now she's forced into an exam immediately after transmigrating. When she looks down at the paper, she freezes. She can read the strange handwriting without effort. A strange image appears in her mind. A small, winged, cat-like creature pops up, confidently shouting the correct answer and urging her to choose the third option. Andel is stunned, staring at the floating thing only she can see. With 10 minutes left, she grits her teeth and writes it down. Doubt flickers through her mind, but her instincts as a lifelong student take over. Exams are her battlefield, and she refuses to lose. More system creatures appear, rapid-firing answers. Andel writes furiously, her hand flying across the page. She finishes with seconds to spare and slams her hand down, feeling unstoppable. Even the teacher stares in disbelief as the class's worst student suddenly excels. A digital screen appears, announcing the exam stage is complete. The system creature congratulates her, calls her Andel, and welcomes her to the world of Witches Creed 2.0. It explains that it helped her and that her place at Orlan's Academy was reserved in advance. The name hits her like lightning. It's the game she was playing until yesterday. She has truly transmigrated into the body of Andel from the game. Later, by a garden fountain, she tries to negotiate with the system. She accepts the transmigration, but she refuses to be a disposable villainess. She grabs the creature in frustration, but it tells her roles cannot be changed. Ignoring her protests, it assigns a mission. She must prove she has changed within a month before entering the academy and create a believable excuse for her new behavior. Failure means her existence will be erased. Erase means death. Before she can argue, the system disappears, leaving her shouting at empty air. Eventually, Andel sinks down by the fountain and exhales slowly. Panic won't help. Survival comes first, and the missions are unavoidable. She knows this world too well. After months of playing the game, every plot point is burned into her memory. As long as she avoids the original storyline, she believes she can survive. Using her knowledge, her choices, and her own power, Andel remembers the original owner's dark fate all too clearly. Everything began with a rose sigil stolen from the female lead, Cheryl. In the original plot, Cheryl and her friends searched everywhere for the missing item while Andel secretly kept it. Because the sigil reacted to her, she was mistaken for someone of royal blood. That misunderstanding destroyed her life. Treacherous nobles kidnapped her, imprisoned her, and forcibly awakened the dark witch power sleeping inside her body, turning her into a monster. The original ending flashes through her mind. On a ruined battlefield, Cheryl Lambert confronted a fallen Andel and asked if she admitted her sins. Andel refused, declaring that since God had abandoned her, she would carve her own path. Then the male lead Eichmann arrived with flames dancing in his hand. Andel asked if he had come to kill her as well. Eichmann answered with cold resolve and unleashed his power. Andel died beneath his flames, wearing a faint, sorrowful smile. Andel snaps back to reality and screams that she refuses to die like that. She remembers that in the game, Andel was taken away on the second day of the test. That means she only has until tomorrow. Panic floods her. If the plot is already moving, then the rose sigil should be nearby. She refuses to follow the original route and desperately searches her room, crawling on the floor and checking every corner. She finally finds it. The rose sigil glitters in her hand. Relief washes over her when she realizes no one is watching. She convinces herself that as long as she gets rid of this cursed item, she can attend school peacefully and avoid becoming a witch. She moves toward the bed to hide it, but a sharp voice stops her cold. Several girls stand in the doorway. One of them demands to know why Andel is touching Cheryl's bed. Accusations fly instantly, claiming she is trying to steal Cheryl's belongings. Andel freezes, silently cursing the trash system that dragged her into this situation. The girls surround her, demanding she confess. Cheryl stands among them, looking worried. Someone orders Andel to explain herself. At that moment the system activates. It announces a heart-pounding moment. The winged system creature appears and issues a warning: failure equals death. A screen opens with 3 choices. Option A: hug Cheryl's thighs, admit inferiority, and beg for forgiveness. Option B: declare herself the boss and claim Cheryl's bed. Option C: return to a check 20 minutes earlier. Disgusted by the options, Andel immediately selects option C. Time reverses as the world glitches and rewinds. The system confirms the rollback and urges her to complete the mission quickly. She blinks and finds herself back in the testing room. The moment she finishes, she slams her paper onto the teacher's desk and bolts out before anyone can react. She runs as if speed alone can outrun the plot. The system creature wishes her luck as she sprints back to the dormitory. She reaches the room, lifts a pillow, and moves to place the sigil back where it belongs. A voice interrupts her again. The same girl appears, this time even earlier. She questions why Andel handed in her test so fast and once again accuses her of stealing. The system window pops up with the exact same 3 choices. Fury boils inside Andel. Even rushing wasn't enough. She realizes there's no escape this time. She thinks of the original Andel, the witch who wielded flames of wrath. But she isn't that person yet. To survive, she has to be weak. She swallows her pride and selects option A. Inferior mode activates. Andel drops to her knees, wailing loudly. She clings to Cheryl's legs, crying that she was wrong and made a terrible mistake. She lies smoothly, claiming she picked up the sigil by accident and was too scared to return it sooner. She sobs that she never intended to steal anything and insists Cheryl is too kind to blame her. She calls herself inferior again and again. Cheryl is visibly shaken by the scene and gently tells her to stop crying. She explains that she isn't angry and that the sigil is a precious keepsake from her parents. She thanks Andel for returning it. Andel wipes her tears, acting grateful as she praises Cheryl. Inside, she exhales in relief. She has successfully dodged the first deadly checkpoint of the plot. One of the girls snaps at Andel for wiping her wet face with Cheryl's handkerchief, calling it filthy. Cheryl immediately steps in, telling her to stop being cruel. Sensing an opening, Andel quickly changes tactics and claims she recently had a prophetic dream. She describes seeing a goddess statue, stunning everyone around her. The other girls instinctively clasp their hands and offer prayers. Andel instantly realizes that invoking divinity is incredibly effective in this world. The red-haired girl remains unconvinced, calling it a lie and saying that being visited by the goddess is an unimaginable honor. Andel calmly pushes back, asking whether she would ever dare lie while using the goddess's name. The question shuts the girl up on the spot. Andel then declares that because of this divine encounter, she has decided to turn over a new leaf. Whispers spread through the room. Her classmates begin linking her perfect test score to divine blessing. They note that the old Andel was sharp, tongued and unpleasant, nothing like this relaxed version. The conclusion becomes obvious to them. She must truly have received the goddess's favor. Andel smirks and presses a finger to her lips. The other girls mimic her, excited by the shared secret while chatting about how easy she is to talk to now. The red-haired girl storms off, clearly annoyed. The system cat claps wildly and announces a 100% mission completion. Relief washes over Andel as the creature finally disappears. Cheryl hooks her arm through Andel's and suggests getting lunch together. Still shaken from barely escaping disaster, Andel has no appetite. She politely refuses, saying she's tired and wants to rest. After Cheryl leaves, Andel collapses onto her bed, utterly drained. She studies her hands and notices how rough and worn they are, evidence of years spent doing hard labor in the monastery. They don't hurt anymore. This body is used to pain. Andel quietly realizes that this constant hardship and lack of hope likely pushed the original Andel toward villainy. A sudden amused voice breaks the silence. Andel jolts upright to see a man leaning casually against the window. ManhwaCapped, the heir of the ManhwaCapped family and the feared Grim Reaper, meets her gaze and asks if she truly dreamed of the goddess. Her blood runs cold. He's the male lead and the most dangerous person she could face right now. The system cat reappears with a party popper, cheerfully announcing that as a reward for her excellent performance, Ichman's appearance has been moved up by an entire month. A new heart-pounding event triggers. Option A: admit the lie, cry, and beg for forgiveness. Option B: admit the lie and mockingly ask if he wants to fight. Option C: immediate game over, abandoned by the goddess. The system warns her to maintain character consistency or face death. Andel fumes internally, cursing the system nonstop. The cat scoffs, reminding her she's only a support character under strict supervision because she carries world-destroying evil potential. Andel argues that her current combat power is practically non-existent, but the system insists she's still a walking hazard. Realizing she'll be trapped in this scene forever if she hesitates, Andel makes a reckless decision. She ignores every instinct, screaming for safety, and slams her choice down on option B. Andel takes the gamble anyway. She scoffs at the Grim Reaper and asks if he really wants to square up. She points straight at Ichman, daring him to move. He doesn't react, only calmly asking if she's certain. Fired up with reckless confidence, she tells him to come at her. Ichman sighs and snaps his fingers. Flames explode around Andel. Searing pain rips through her body and even through the system gears in her mind. She screams as the world glitches and collapses, realizing too late that wrong choices come with real consequences. She blinks and returns to the choice screen. Completely drained, Andel abandons her pride. One round of torture is enough. She accepts reality and throws herself at Eichmann, diving straight for his leg. She clings to him and wails dramatically, crying that there are no thighs in this world she cannot reach. Eichmann stiffens, a bead of cold sweat forming as he wonders if this girl has entirely lost her will to live. Between sobs, Andel confesses that she lied about the goddess only to survive and return the sigil. She begs for mercy, calling herself a useless, incompetent girl. Eichmann studies her closely. She looks harmless, fragile, and shows no trace of magic. Still, the fact that she managed to grab him so easily makes him wary. As he lifts her chin, an unexpected warmth fills his chest. This girl is strange, far too strange for a border town nobody. When she hiccups softly, he even finds her a little amusing. He asks if she truly grew up with Cheryl. Their eyes meet. Andel instantly recognizes the move. Eichmann's gaze glows with an alluring blue light. Indiscriminate charm appeal. Without her memories from the game, she would have been done for. She quickly pretends to be overwhelmed by his beauty instead. In this world, magic demands a price. The greater the power, the heavier the cost. Eichmann traded ordinary human restraint for overwhelming charm to gain the Grim Reaper's legendary abilities. Andel internally screams at how unfairly effective it is. No sane person could resist this man. Eichmann mentions his long history with Cheryl and says he understands the situation. Without warning, he flicks Andel's forehead and walks out. She collapses onto the floor, stunned, rubbing her head and cursing him for having zero manners. Exhausted, she stares blankly ahead. Life here feels like a forced stage play where everyone is acting to survive. She looks out the window, regretting every gaming habit that led her here, wondering if she'll ever go home. Then she clenches her fists. No matter how pathetic she looks, she will live. The system cat dings and announces she has unlocked a high-level mission. Stay alive. Andel scowls at the smug emojis and dramatic punctuation. The system then demands a satisfaction rating. All three options say satisfactory. Furious, Andel refuses to pick. She turns to leave and slams face first into an invisible wall. The cat cheerfully warns her that failure to choose will trap her in this cutscene forever. She pounds the barrier in rage. The cat pretends not to hear. Defeated, Andel slumps and selects the plain, satisfactory option. The cat claps, mock disappointed she didn't choose the highest rating, and promises to try harder next time. When Andel checks her progress, her eyes widen. She's already at 80% completion for changing her character traits. Hope sparks, until the cat announces a big BB surprise reward. Andel's heart sinks as she silently prays the system hasn't dragged another dangerous character into her life ahead of schedule. Andel tries to ask one last question, but the system cat abruptly shushes her. It claims it already knows what she needs and tells her not to be shy. With an overly cheerful goodbye, it urges her to rest well and look forward to tomorrow before vanishing. Andel is left yelling at empty air, leaning out the window in frustration and begging it to come back. The next morning, the door slams open. The red-haired girl bursts in, shouting that a rich noble's carriage has arrived at the monastery, escorted by armed guards. She excitedly tells Cheryl that Principal Klaus has summoned her to the lounge. Then she turns to Andel and adds that she's been summoned too. Andel freezes mid-motion, still in bare pajamas with messy hair in her hands. Cheryl agrees to go at once, but Andel's blood runs cold. This is it, the exact moment the original plot begins. She remembers it clearly. A noble once mistook the original Andel for someone of imperial blood. That single mistake led to her kidnapping and eventual ruin. Andel refuses to let history repeat itself. Jaw clenched, she follows Cheryl with grim resolve. Inside the lounge, the staff announces their arrival. A silver-haired noble immediately locks eyes on Cheryl. He studies her black hair, green eyes, and gentle expression, declaring she perfectly matches his master and mistress. He introduces himself as Hughes Lampert and announces that he has finally found her. He urges Cheryl to return home at once, saying the carriage is ready. Andel's heart drops. She recognizes him, the man who caused everything to fall apart in the original story. If Cheryl leaves now, she could be dragged into the same nightmare. Andel thinks of Cheryl's kindness, of the warm bread she shared even when Andel was lazy and distant. She refuses to let her walk into a trap. Andel steps forward and grabs Cheryl's shoulder, plastering on a bright, fake smile. She loudly congratulates Cheryl on finally being found by her family. Then she pushes for time, suggesting Cheryl stay one more day so they can hold a farewell gathering and share memories of her upbringing. Hughes glances at Andel. Suddenly intrigued, he notes her black hair and green eyes as well, wondering why he hadn't noticed her before. The principal cuts in and decides Cheryl will leave immediately. Andel bows politely, but the moment they turn away, she grabs Cheryl's hand and runs. She drags a stunned Cheryl through the halls, shouting a rushed goodbye behind her. They don't stop until both are out of breath. Cheryl demands an explanation. Andel warns her that the noble has no proof and might be using her appearance as an excuse. She reminds Cheryl of her excellent grades and her guaranteed entry into Orland's academy. She advises Cheryl to tell him she will meet him in the capital after enrollment. If he's truly loyal, he'll wait 10 days. If not, he's suspicious. Cheryl agrees, moved by Andel's concern. She apologizes for ever misunderstanding her and realizes Andel is genuinely kind. As they clasp hands, a system screen appears announcing 100% completion of Andel's character, change mission. Andel feels relieved but unease lingers. She notices a symbol on Hughes's clothing that resembles her rose sigil. She knows she needs answers. If Cheryl mentions the sigil herself, she might still be taken. Calling after Cheryl, Andel worries her interference may not have been enough. All she can do is pray Cheryl's plot armor holds. Later, while descending a staircase, Andel runs into H-Man again. He greets her with a mocking smile, calling her Miss Fraud. Horror washes over her. Is this the system's surprise? She tries to convince herself she's hallucinating and turns to flee. But Eichmann steps in front of her. She crashes into his chest with a dull thud and angrily accuses him of doing it on purpose. Eichmann leans closer, towering over her. He twirls a strand of her hair and casually says that since she has already run into his heart, he's made a decision. She's coming back to Orleans Academy with him. Cold sweat breaks out across Andel's face. She nervously asks if he's mistaken her for someone else and hurriedly offers to help him find Cheryl instead. Adelia is stunned, convinced Eichmann must be joking since he and Cheryl are the story's main couple. She decides he is simply mistaking her for the heroine. She blames her own hair and eye color for the confusion, noting a 100% similarity between the two girls. Eichmann calls her Miss Fraud, asking why she's suddenly acting so oblivious to him. He reminds her that she was clinging to his legs just a day ago. He confirms he was specifically looking for her. He twirls a lock of her hair, asking if she truly recognizes him now. Adelia feels the pressure of his alluring stare. She assumes he is using his charm skill again but finds she isn't fully affected. She brings up his previous appearance at her window. Eichmann confirms it was him. He gives her a terrifying choice. Leave with him now or be killed to protect his identity. Adelia tries to bargain for a silent spell instead. Eichmann ignores her and points toward a carriage outside. He snaps his fingers, and Adelia watches in horror as the carriage is engulfed in a massive explosion of flames. Eichmann stands over her with fire in his hand, repeating his demand. Adelia realizes the boss is serious and immediately agrees to go. He is satisfied and reveals he already has her school acceptance letter in hand. As they leave, Adelia finds his forceful nature overwhelming. She glances out a window and sees the carriage is perfectly fine. She realizes the fire was all just a terrifying illusion. Eichmann leads her out the front door without any concern for his secret identity. He thanks the monastery staff for their care and announces to everyone that he is taking her to Orleans. Adelia is mortified by the public announcement. Eichmann pets her head and offers a blessing for her future. Cheryl is hurt and confused, asking why Adelia is going to school now after stopping her earlier. The other students begin calling Adelia vicious and shady. A blonde boy steps forward to insult Eichmann's taste, calling Adelia a despicable pig. Adelia doesn't hesitate and slaps the boy across the face. The boy is shocked and tries to retaliate by grabbing her collar. Adelia counters with a brutal knee to his stomach. As he collapses in pain, she mockingly pats his head. She lectures him on the importance of polite speech and the rules against swearing. Adelia sighs, wishing she had a family to back her up. Eichmann watches her with a smirk. Adelia plays along, calling him her brother and asking if they're going home. Eichmann flicks her forehead but then starts tenderly fixing her messy hair. The crowd is stunned into silence, unable to believe she managed to seduce him. In the awkward quiet, Cheryl asks if they can all go to Orleans together. Sylvie steps forward and introduces herself with a graceful bow, formally addressing the mysterious noble. She asks if she may have the honor of knowing his name, maintaining her perfect heroine persona. Adelia watches from the sidelines, thinking the heroine truly is on another level compared to her own embarrassing first encounter where she had to hug the man's legs. Adelia hopes that if their relationship develops smoothly, the Grim Reaper's dangerous attention will finally shift away from her. However, the plan immediately fails when Eichmann stares coldly at Sylvie and gives a flat refusal. He tells her bluntly that she doesn't even deserve to know his name. Adelia is shocked, realizing the male lead just completely rejected the heroine, throwing the entire plot into chaos. As they begin to walk through the streets of Iznoya, Adelia recognizes the area from her time playing the game. She feels strange being there in person but notices the local townspeople are whispering about them. They gossip about why a girl from the convent is following such a high-ranking noble. Suspecting a shady deal is under the table. Realizing she is attracting too much negative attention, Adelia points to a nearby shop and asks Eichmann if she can get a veil to cover her face. Adelia realizes she's completely broke and begins to wail about being penniless, acting like a total klutz. Eichmann watches her run off, finding it strange that his magical art of seduction has no effect on her. He notes that while she has no magic of her own, his own spells seem to weaken whenever she's nearby. Seeing her distress over the money, he decides to step in and snaps his fingers. A bright flash of golden light envelops Adelia, and she suddenly finds herself wearing a cute yellow outfit and a duck hat. She panics, thinking he cut off her hair, but soon realizes it's just a clever illusion spell. She thanks him for the new look, secretly admitting that the man actually has pretty good taste. Eichmann walks beside her, revealing that he knew she only slapped the blonde boy earlier to save him from a much worse fate. He asks her if he really seems that cruel. Adelia is caught off guard, realizing her true intentions were obvious. She tries to play it off, claiming the boy deserved it for being disrespectful. She explains that in the past, she never dared to fight back because there was no one to stand up for her. Eichmann hums thoughtfully as Adelia gives him a sincere, winning smile. She believes she's successfully manipulated the big boss by using praise, and she vows to keep anyone else from annoying him. Adelia climbs clumsily into the red horse carriage and finds Eichmann already seated inside. He is wearing glasses and reading a book, looking incredibly seductive in the dim light. Adelia can't help but stare, finding him refined and handsome. Eichmann doesn't even look up from his page as he tells her to stop looking at him. Adelia gulps in embarrassment, realizing she's been caught staring for far too long. Siegfried notices Adelia's face turning bright red as she looks at him. He realizes she isn't affected by his magic, meaning her blush is genuine and not forced by a spell. Adelia points out that he still hasn't introduced himself properly. He finally reveals his real name is Siegfried Scarborough. Adelia is stunned that he shared his true identity so easily. Given his reputation, she mentions her own status as a nameless orphan. Siegfried stares at her intensely, making her worry she said something wrong. He suddenly asks her if she remembers the first question on the academy entrance exam. Adelia recalls the answer was option C but struggles to remember the specific content. She suddenly realizes the answer was the Scarborough family itself. Excitedly, she asks if he is truly the master of that legendary house. She clings to his leg again, claiming it's an honor to be taken away by someone so important. Siegfried's expression darkens as he asks whose legs she has hugged before. Adelia panics, wondering if her answer will determine her survival. She hesitantly mentions Sylvie, but Siegfried demands to know if there were others. She indignantly wonders how many legs he expects her to grab in one lifetime. She promises there are no others, which finally seems to satisfy him. He strictly forbids her from hugging anyone else's legs from now on. The carriage comes to a halt as they arrive at their destination. They step out into the Kanao Rift Valley instead of the academy. Adelia hops down but screams as the burning ground scorches her feet through her thin shoes. She realizes the valley is a volcanic wasteland and feels cheated by her lack of gear. She notices even the horses are wearing special insulated protection. Siegfried asks if she can ride a horse, but she admits she can't. He tells her to just sit still, leaving her annoyed that he even bothered to ask. Siegfried begins to chant a powerful spell as magical energy swirls around his hand. A massive gust of wind knocks Adelia back as the sky fills with light. She looks up to see the six-winged golden dragon, the world's last of its kind and the guardian of his family. She is terrified, realizing this monster is what he considers a horse. She internally apologizes to regular horses, wishing she was riding one of them instead of this beast. Siegfried tells her to come on, but she wonders if she's expected to climb its whiskers to reach the top. Knowing she can't make the jump, Siegfried simply pats the dragon's snout. He takes his seat on the dragon's back amidst glowing magic circles. The dragon glares at Adelia with terrifying, golden eyes. It suddenly snatches her up by her collar with its massive claws. The beast tosses her high into the air like a rag doll. Adelia closes her eyes and accepts her death as she plummets. A magical aura surrounds her, allowing her to float gently onto the dragon's back. She lands with a thud, relieved to find she is still breathing. She realizes she has been placed directly next to Siegfried. Her face flushes as she realizes the dragon did this intentionally. She sits frozen in embarrassment, hoping he won't be angry at their sudden proximity. The golden dragon lets out a deafening roar, sending Adelia into a state of pure terror. In her panic, she accidentally bumps into Siegfried, who grumbles about his glasses being disturbed. She internally screams that it wasn't on purpose, while Siegfried snaps his fingers and dryly admits he didn't expect her to be quite so afraid of a dragon. As they soar over the massive, cracked earth of the Kanao Rift Valley, Adelia is awestruck, never imagining she would see the bottom of such a legendary place. The mood shifts instantly when Siegfried grabs her and leans in close to her ear. He coldly threatens to throw her off the dragon, noting that she would be swallowed by the magic flames below and turn to ash in an instant. He asks if she's scared, looking smug as she trembles. Adelia is stunned to see him manipulating magic flames, a mastery he shouldn't possess until the very end of the game when he becomes a Grand Tutor. She looks at the magical hierarchy in her mind and realizes he has already reached that elite level, meaning the plot has drastically changed since her transmigration. Trying to stay calm, Adelia tells him that while she knows he could easily kill her, she doesn't think she's worth the effort. Siegfried grins, finding her much braver than he initially anticipated. He tells her to hold on as the dragon banks through the air. Casually, he asks if she's heard of the Magic Flame Institute. Moments later, the dragon crashes onto cracked earth with a heavy thud. Siegfried announces they've arrived. The dragon roars again. The shockwave slams into Adelia, blasting her backward. As she loses consciousness, she thinks bitterly that Siegfried is nothing but trouble. She worries she annoyed him enough to be thrown away and weakly protests that none of this is her fault. It's the dragon's. Her eyes snap open. She bolts upright in an unfamiliar bed, frantically checking her surroundings. She's alive. Realizing she wasn't thrown into Rift Valley, she breaks down in tears of relief. The door opens. A blonde maid enters with food and water, saying Adelia is finally awake and asking how she feels. Adelia stares blankly at the maid's boots and asks how long she's been out. Her stomach growls loudly before she gets an answer. 2 days, the maid says. Few people can endure a dragon's roar. She introduces herself as Vivian and sets the tray down. Adelia grabs the bread, thanking her profusely, cheeks stuffed as she asks where Siegfried is. Vivian's expression turns icy. She demands how Adelia dares to call the young master by name. Adelia chokes, panics, and hurriedly apologizes, insisting it was a mistake. Vivian instantly switches back to a smile and says she'll take Adelia to him after she eats. That night, they descend a stone staircase into a dungeon-like level. Adelia asks how Vivian knows the young master, while internally wondering how she herself does. She remembers he promised to take her to Orland's academy, but this clearly isn't Orland's. Vivian wonders if Adelia is the new blood Siegfried is nurturing for the institute. Then she launches into fangirling, calling Siegfried the pillar of the empire and her ultimate idol. They stop before a massive clock-faced mechanical door. Vivian announces this is the lowest floor of the Magic Flame Institute, and that Siegfried is resting in the flame pool. Vivian tells Adelia to go in, instructs her to use the elevator afterward, and leaves. Adelia steps forward and knocks carefully. The door is already unlocked. She pushes it open and freezes. In the center of the room, surrounded by swirling red magic and floating feathers, Siegfried sits with his back to her, shirtless. Submerged in glowing magic flame, Adelia stares, stunned. She thought magic flame burned everything. The fact that he's bathing in it makes him feel less like a person and more like a monster. Then it hits her. He's naked. Her face burns as panic sets in. Deciding she's seen far too much, Adelia slowly starts backing away, desperately trying to think of an excuse to escape before he notices. Siegfried asks Adelia if she is in trouble. The system cat suddenly appears, banging a gong to announce it's time for another life-altering choice. 3 versions of the creature surround distressed Adelia, demanding a response. The screen presents 3 absurd options: offer a back rub, suggest a bath together, or steal his clothes and bolt. Adelia puts on her mental detective hat to analyze the logic. She immediately rejects stealing his clothes, picturing herself being fried by his magic the moment she touches them. She also refuses the bath option, knowing that jumping into a pool of magic flames without powers is a one-way ticket to a bad ending. She settles on the back rub, reasoning that since Siegfried hates physical contact, he'll definitely reject the offer. To her, it's the perfect way to look caring while staying safe. She gathers her courage and asks if he'd like a back rub. Siegfried is taken aback, realizing she thinks he's just casually bathing when he's actually suppressing a dangerous magic spill. He notes her complete ignorance of magic but decides not to explain. However, Siegfried notices that his pain lessens whenever she gets close. He finds this anomaly fascinating and commands her to come to him. Adelia is horrified as her safe plan backfires. She nervously asks for a scrubbing towel, but Siegfried is more focused on her formal speech. He asks who told her to call him young master, and when she mentions Vivian, he tells her to just use his name, Siegfried. Somewhere else, Vivian lets out a sudden sneeze. Siegfried grows impatient, reminding Adelia of her offer. When she tries to stall by looking for a towel, he snaps his fingers. Magic flames erupt around Adelia, lifting her off the ground. Instead of burning, she's shocked to find the magic feels warm and gentle, like being wrapped in a cozy blanket. Siegfried is equally confused, noting that the flames under his control have become strangely soft in her presence. He lowers her into the pool area, and Adelia is struck by his perfect face and irresistible aura. He tells her to come even closer. She moves forward, sweating as she wonders exactly how much proximity he requires. She tries to confirm if he actually wants the rub, but Siegfried's expression turns dark and annoyed. Adelia realizes her attempts to change the subject have only made things worse. Siegfried leans in until they are inches apart. He asks if she truly wants to proceed, then suggests they bathe together so they can rub each other's backs. Adelia is left completely petrified, turning into a literal statue from the sheer shock of his proposal. Siegfried leans in, making Andel's heart pound. Before she can react, her body lifts into the air. Swirling flames coil around her, binding her hands behind her back and suspending her above the lava pool. Panic explodes. She screams internally for the game assistant, begging for a rewind and thinking that stealing his clothes would have been safer than this. Siegfried watches her struggle, curious whether she's finally afraid. Andel breaks down, sobbing as she hangs helplessly in the fire. He extends a finger wreathed in flames and slowly brings it to her face. Instead of burning, it feels cold. Confused, she peeks at him with one eye. He calmly pokes her cheek, then places a hand on her head. Fire surges around her arm. She gasps, then freezes as the flames dissolve into harmless light. Her hair isn't singed, not even warm. Siegfried absorbs the remaining magic into his palm and confirms his suspicion. Her bloodline devours magic itself. His gaze sharpens as he lifts her chin and calls her a rare treasure. He steps out of the lava as if it were water, standing there with only a towel around his waist. Without hesitation, he offers her anything she wants. The sudden shift leaves Andel stunned, but she seizes the chance to finish her quest. She asks him to confirm his promise. He agrees without conditions. Blushing, she lowers her eyes and asks for a back rub. Siegfried pauses mid-button, genuinely caught off guard. He had expected requests for wealth or land, not manual labor. Her insistence on serving him makes no sense. After a long silence, he sighs and agrees. At the institute, students freeze as Siegfried walks down the hall with Andel beside him. The atmosphere turns suffocating. Andel feels every stare burn into her. Vivian spots them and nearly drops on the spot, shocked by their closeness and by how much better the young master looks. She wonders if Andel had something to do with it. Siegfried stops. Vivian panics and introduces herself with a flushed face. He ignores the greeting and orders her to have Nicholas prepare a magic testing formation. Vivian trembles, overwhelmed that he acknowledged her by name. Siegfried commands all students to remain in their rooms until morning. His eyes glow cold as he scans the documents in his hand. The students scatter instantly, leaving Andel standing awkwardly at his side. She tells herself it's just a back rub and quietly suggests returning to the flame pool. Siegfried tells her there's no rush and leads her away. Staff members watch in silence. Vivian and an older man stare after them, baffled by their closeness. From the outside, it looks almost romantic. Siegfried remains expressionless as he tells Andel she looks better now. Vivian bows deeply as they pass. He asks if the formation is ready. Nicholas confirms and invites them to follow. When Nicholas asks if Siegfried plans to break through to a new realm, Siegfried corrects him. The test isn't for him, it's for her. The narrator notes that the formation is extraordinarily expensive and precise, a privilege reserved for the Empire's highest elite. Nicholas stares at Andel in disbelief, convinced the young master has lost his mind by wasting such a resource on a girl with no magic. Under his intense gaze, Andel feels her skin crawl. Adelia stands before a massive, glowing crystal formation, wondering what kind of power she might actually possess. She remembers that the original Adelia became a terrifying villainess, so she assumes she must be gifted. Siegfried asks if she sees the red circle in the center of the room. He tells her she just needs to stand still inside it. Adelia is panicky, but Siegfried places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. He promises that nothing will happen to her as long as he is there. Adelia agrees and walks toward the circle. Nicholas watches, assuming the young master has a plan. Siegfried steps forward and tells Nicholas he will conduct the formation himself. Nicholas is stunned, unable to believe Siegfried would do this personally. He internally rants that Adelia is evil, throwing a chibi-style tantrum on the floor. Siegfried kneels and activates the magic. A massive pillar of golden flame erupts around Adelia. Nicholas sighs, lamenting the waste of such priceless crystals. Adelia floats in the air, eyes closed as the magic swirls around her. Vivian and Nicholas are forced to shield their eyes from the intense light. Siegfried asks Nicholas if he remembers a prophecy from his birth. He speaks of magic being both his glory and his abyss. He explains his long search for someone from a magic-free bloodline. He identifies the Marley family as the only such line on the continent. Siegfried explains that their bodies don't lack magic but instead swallow it into a zero state. This rare trait only appears in women, whom the former emperor classified as witches. The emperor destroyed the Marley family, cutting off the bloodline. Siegfried admits he searched the continent in vain until now. He looks at Adelia, believing fate is finally on his side. He touches her face, relieved to have found her at last. He carries the now unconscious Adelia in his arms. Nicholas is moved to tears, realizing he completely misunderstood both the young master and the girl. He declares that the young master is right about everything. Siegfried tells Nicholas that what happened in the room must remain a secret between them. He carries Adelia toward the golden dragon waiting at the entrance. He orders Nicholas to ensure no one else knows about Adelia's true nature. He provides a cover story about soaking in the flame pool to explain his presence. The dragon roars and takes to the sky. Siegfried holds Adelia close as they fly through the clouds. Adelia remains fast asleep in his arms. She eventually wakes up in a digital void, wondering if she is dreaming. System messages announce that Enchantress 2.0 is loading. The game initializes, activating her skill tree and realizing the world. The system cat appears with a celebratory shout. It tells Adelia she has officially cleared the tutorial. The main storyline is now unfolding. Adelia is baffled, realizing all her previous struggles were just a tutorial. She grabs the cat in a rage, refusing to believe she went through so much for a mere introduction. The cat ignores her anger and reminds her she is destined to be a witch. It tells her she must now define her own witch's creed. A new choice screen appears for the game's difficulty. Option A is a little hard but not life-threatening. Option B is not too hard but involves facing chaos. Option C is easy but subject to trials. Adelia analyzes the options with suspicion. She realizes not life-threatening likely means being on the brink of death. She asks what chaos means, but the cat just smirks. A warning appears stating that a bad ending now means real death. Adelia is horrified to learn the passage back to her world is closed. Realizing she can't go home, she decides to make the most of this life. She looks at Siegfried's image and decides he is her best chance for protection. She chooses option B, deciding to trust him and cling to his side to survive the coming chaos. The cat winks, confirming her choice is made. Adelia gasps as she opens her eyes, finding herself tucked into a massive, ornate bed. She realizes the tutorial is finally over and the main chapter has begun. Siegfried sits nearby, noting that she's finally awake. He's dressed in a loose white robe that leaves his chest partially exposed. Adelia blushes and hides under the covers, unable to deny how attractive he looks. He calmly asks if she's hungry. She gulps and asks where exactly they are. Siegfried stands regally and welcomes her to Orleans. He opens a window, revealing the sprawling palace of Duke Scarborough, his home. Adelia catches the scent of fresh flowers and steps out of bed. She looks out at the breathtaking golden garden and calls it beautiful. Siegfried joins her, explaining this room has the best view and is reserved for his most distinguished guests. Adelia wonders if this means she's actually special to him. Siegfried snaps his fingers and suggests they eat. A food cart laden with steak and soup slides into the room. They sit at opposite ends of a massive dining table. Adelia watches as Siegfried folds a piece of paper and tosses it into the air. With a pop, the paper transforms into a life-sized servant in a tuxedo. Adelia is amazed as the paper man begins to serve them. She wonders why he's being so kind, questioning if it's all because of her earlier leg hugging. She asks about the results of her magic test and if she's qualified. Siegfried tells her she's not bad and offers to teach her first spell personally. Adelia is thrilled, thinking that having him as a tutor will help her protect herself and provide an excuse if she's ever accused of dark magic. She finishes her meal happily, declaring it delicious. Adelia asks if they can start the lesson immediately. Siegfried points to a door and tells her to wait for him in the bathroom. Adelia freezes, her mind racing with nervous thoughts. She hopes he really is just going to teach her magic. Siegfried reminds her that she offered him a back rub and says he'll teach her a specific spell for it. Adelia enters the luxurious bathroom, assuming the back rub was just a joke. She realizes this is her chance to clear a quest but wonders what a back rubbing spell even entails. She finds a scrubbing tool and prepares herself. Siegfried enters the room in his robe and asks if she's ready. He takes the tool from her and begins to channel magic. A glowing orb of energy floats between them. He demonstrates by magically pouring water over a small, conjured image. He tells her this is what she needs to learn and instructs her to try. Adelia panics, admitting she has no idea how to use magic. Siegfried tells her to raise her head. He touches her forehead, and a surge of information flows into her mind. Adelia is stunned by how easy it is to transfer knowledge. For her spell drill, Siegfried tells her to practice by giving his cat a bath. A fluffy white cat appears with a pop. He promises that once she masters this, he'll teach her something else entirely. He gently pets the cat as Adelia looks on, ready to begin her training. Siegfried gently pets the white cat while Adelia looks on, completely bewildered by the domestic scene. He stands up and reminds her that registration for Orleans Academy is tomorrow. Since he'll be busy, he informs her that his summoned paper man will serve as her escort. Adelia nearly has a heart attack, realizing she's been asleep for over a week and school is starting way sooner than expected. She panics in her chibi form, screaming that she isn't ready for this. Siegfried watches her count the lost days on her fingers with a look of slight concern. He reaches out and touches her forehead again, giving her a final piece of advice. He tells her to remember she possesses fire magic for when she eventually touches the Academy's spirit stone. He adds that if any trouble arises, she should use the paper man to get a message to him. Siegfried walks away, leaving Adelia alone in the massive bathroom with the cat. Adelia admits she loves furry animals, but she knows bathing a cat is a nightmare. She's certain Siegfried gave her this task just to mess with her. She tries to approach the kitty with a friendly greeting, but the cat is a tiny, feral terror. It hisses and swipes at her with sharp claws, making a normal bath impossible. Adelia decides to test the magical knowledge Siegfried transferred to her mind. She focuses her energy and successfully conjures a floating orb of water. She's delighted to see it actually moving under her command. However, the cat isn't scared, it leaps into the air and tries to bite the magic bubble. Adelia realizes that in this world, even the pets are far from normal. She asks the cat if it can speak, but it just ignores her and goes back to grooming itself. She decides there's no rush to finish the bath and heads back to the main room. She finds Siegfried waiting for her on the sofa with a large, mysterious brown box. He tells her the school sent it for her. Adelia sits down and opens the lid, finding a single envelope with a wax seal inside. She looks at the letter and is confused to see an extra surname added to her own. Siegfried explains that Adelia Goldstein is his gift to her, claiming the name brings good luck. Adelia realizes how thoughtful he's being. In this society, students without surnames are immediate targets for the aristocracy. She beams at him with a genuine smile, telling him she absolutely loves the gift. Siegfried looks away, seemingly unable to meet her eyes after her display of gratitude. He repeats that the paper man will be with her tomorrow and warns her not to cause any trouble. Adelia nods obediently, clutching her new identity. The next morning, she wakes up to a room flooded with blinding sunlight. She wonders if she forgot to close the curtains, but a quick look around reveals the truth. The feral cat has completely shredded the expensive drapes and is currently hanging from the ruins. Seeing the room in a state of absolute chaos, Adelia decides to flee the crime scene immediately. She bids the kitty a quick goodbye and dashes out the door, ready to start her new life at the academy.